on social media, I was alluding to whom I feel are the best rappers of this decade so far. I mean, you have so many publications, as I was mentioning earlier, like Billboard and Rolling Stones coming out with their year-end list and what have you. Billboard, a couple weeks ago, came out with whom they thought were the top 10 rappers of all time, and that created a lot of discussion, to say the least. So on that note, I decided to take a step further, and I wanted to discuss who are the best rappers of this current decade. Now, here's what went into my list, basically. I wanted to make sure that I list down whom I thought was the best from 2010 up until now, based on quality of their work, basically. So whether it was albums or mixtapes or the amalgamation of both, their reach towards their audience, so through social media, sold out concerts and what have you, record sales as well, because we have to think about the logistics of that as well. Also their overall styles or techniques, how strongly equipped they are within their craft. All these things kind of went into play, basically. And this isn't just like a personal subjective list. There is a little bit of subjectivity in it, of course. However, there was some objectivity that went into this list as well. Because there are some rappers that I listed on here that I probably would have listed at a higher spot if it was just for my own personal amusement, basically. But I try to be as objective as possible. Some people on this list I don't even like, or I've kind of fallen out of favor with. So that kind of gives you an idea of what kind of planning went into this, basically. And also, all the rappers who are on this list had to have at least come out with a project from 2008 and onward. And now I say 2008 and onward because of the fact that even though 2010 is really the beginning of the decade, a lot of the artists who are popular now kind of got their feet wet in 2000, in like the later 2000s. So like with Drake, for example, he came out with his classic mixtape So Far Gone in 2009, but obviously the majority of his career has been strongly built within this current decade. So that's a little example for you. Anyways, with all that being said, with all the parameters being covered, let's get into it. At number 10, I have DC's own Wale. Now, if you were to ask me my top 10 like 5 years ago, Wale would arguably be at like number 3, basically. But there have been some things that have dragged him down all the way to number 10, but I'll mention all his good attributes. So with Wale, he deserves to be on this list because of the fact that he was one of the first artists to kind of break into this new era of artists that didn't have to be a gangster or a pimp or anything of the sort to kind of be that mainstream rapper that we're looking to hear on the radio. He helped break that mold. He was just a simple guy who was into street fashion, sneakers, and he had a high penchant for wordplay. His level of poetry is also on point as well, and he has written for so many different artists, including a Jay-Z. So on top of that, he also had a very good mixtape run in the later 2000s with his About Nothing series, which kind of combined his subject matter with that of Seinfeld, and he put it into one project, and he created those episodes of Seinfeld, little bits and skits here and there, and kind of patterned them around the subject matter that he would like to talk about. Now, I dragged him down all the way to number 10, mainly because of the fact that, in my humble opinion, I feel like he's fallen off. What brought him to the dance in the first place, he has gradually divided himself away from that in order to fit in with the Maybach music brand. And to me, it's almost a case of the nerd who got picked on at his first high school. You know, no one wanted to hang out with him. People threw food at him, whatever the case may be. And then he goes to the new high school, revamps his image, and now he's hanging out with the jocks. He's getting with the girls that he could just dream of breaking his neck for. That whole thing. His subject matter has dwindled down a little bit. And even though he's tried to play both sides, trying to appeal to his first fan base, which is kind of like the backpack fan base, to like the now more, I guess you could say, urban ratchet crowd, whatever you want to call it, it still hasn't worked out for him. He's still a skilled lyricist, but it's going to take a lot more to kind of get back that credibility that he once had back 5 years ago at the very least. That's my personal opinion. What do you guys think? Let me know, because we have a whole lot more to go. Number 9, I got to give it to Chance the Rapper. Now, Chance the Rapper is a very unique rapper. He comes from Chicago. I feel like the water in Chicago is spiked because the majority of people who come out of Chicago are just immensely talented. I mean, come on, we're talking about Rhymefest. We're talking about Do or Die, Kanye West, Lupe Fiasco. But then you have like your misses like Chief Keef or whatever. But nonetheless, let's never mind those guys. Chance the Rapper is a very unique case because of the fact that there aren't a whole lot of artists out there right now who sound like him. To me, when I listen to Chance the Rapper, he comes across as a remix of Old Dirty Bastard. He sounds a lot like Old Dirty Bastard, but a bit more lyrical, more articulate, and he also has a very raspy voice, a very raspy singing voice, kind of to the tune of a Teddy Pendergrass, which I kind of find a little refreshing. I love the subject matter. I love his instrumentation as well. He has some very good producers on his side. And I feel like he kind of rhymes to the beat of his own drum, so to speak. He doesn't really care what lanes are being built right now. He's kind of created his own lane. And the moment you hear Chance the Rapper, you know it's Chance the Rapper. So he's kind of built his own sound on top of that as well, and has gained a lot of credibility from a lot of the established acts as well as people who we consider to be his peers on that note. My reason for putting him at number 9 is because he doesn't have a large enough body of work. The reach is there via social media, but the body of work isn't enough for me to place him any higher than a number 9, with only 2 mixtapes to speak of, Ask the Rap being the more heralded mixtape of that pair that he has. But again, not a large enough body of work for me to rate him at higher than number 9. At number 8, we have Logic. Now, Logic is in a similar case where I kept him at number 8 because his body of work it's not large enough because he doesn't have about 3 or 4 mixtapes to his name with 2 albums to his name on top of that. But his reach hasn't really spawned as large as the other people that I will mention on this list. But some of the good attributes about him is that he's a highly skilled rapper. This guy is technical to the T. The way he pronounces all the syllables, his rhyming structure, it is on point. It's almost like you can measure it with a ruler in a sense. Not only is he a good rapper who can just rap his ass off on any type of instrumental, making it very versatile, but the fact that he can also craft a song. He's a very good songwriter, and he knows how to measure his melodies. He has a very high IQ of pitch and octaves and vocal range and what have you. So I feel like Logic at this point in time right now could be hip-hop's best kept secret. But again, I can't put him over just because of the fact that his reach hasn't gone on large enough in comparison to everyone else on this list, but also because of the fact that the one glaring criticism that he always gets is that, unlike a Chance the Rapper, Logic, doesn't really have his own sound, basically. I think he's still trying to find it. A lot of people say how he sounds much more like his contemporaries, like a Drake, like a J. Cole, like a Kendrick Lamar, to say the few, like those 3 in particular. What Logic needs to do is to find his own sound, because once he does, then he's going to rise higher in this list as the years go by. And on top of that, if you are a first-time listener of Logic or you're just a casual listener to hip-hop, if you hear this guy rapping, you're not really going to know who it is, and you're not really going to pinpoint it to something. Like, if I hear Chance the Rapper, I know it's Chance the Rapper, basically, because of his voice, because of his delivery, and what have you. With Logic, we don't have that yet. If you're a Logic fan, it's a totally different story. You're going to know exactly who Logic is. Like, that goes without saying. Number 7, Big Sean. Now, Big Sean, he's been very successful over the years, ever since signing with Good Music in 2007, put out his first mixtape around that time, but then he really got the ball rolling 2009, 2010, so on and so forth. He's had a lot of singles all over the radio, one of the most commercially recognized rappers in the game right now. And on top of that, he has like a lot of witty wordplay to his name. Main reason why I keep him at number 7 is because of the fact that and this is my personal opinion, I don't feel as though he is as skilled as any of the artists who are on this list right now. I feel like and I don't want to say weak, because he's not really weak of a lyricist or whatever, but his skills aren't as strong as everyone else that is on this list right now. His albums aren't really that critically acclaimed. They've been lukewarm, they've been okay, they've been very passive, I'll say at most. But nothing to scream out classic or debatable classic or anything of that sort. I feel like Big Sean is just kind of like, right now, he's just kind of going through the motions like this. He's not really taking any chances. And I feel as though when it comes to his production, he kind of goes against the grain with his production. He likes to rhyme over a lot of loud, ruckus beats that kind of drown him out, in my opinion, because I feel as though his voice is very smooth, laid back, and very nasally, and he would work well with someone like Pharrell, for example, who could give him that laid back production on a more consistent basis. I feel like a mixture of that and just more strengthened lyricism on top of that, with a more strengthened resolve for the concept of his albums, I feel like he would rise higher on this list. Number 6, Nicki Minaj. Now, I'm not just putting her in there just so she can represent for the ladies or anything like that, but I have to give props where props are due. She's not my cup of tea, but to deny her a top 10 spot in this current decade of artists right now, I would be a hater. Say what you need to say about her. She's risen close to the top of the mainstream right now. She's been the most commercially relevant female MC since, I guess, Missy Elliott, because she's probably been one of the few female MCs that have stuck around within the mainstream. Nicki Minaj has a very interesting delivery that kind of makes her recognizable to the masses. Like her penchant for delivery, I kind of find comparable to like a Busta Rhymes. It's very out there, very in your face. She has a strong following. Her gimmick works just well for the commercial masses, and I feel like those are the things that are working for her. Reason why I don't feel as though she's at the top of the list or anywhere near it is because I feel like her gimmick is basically the only thing that kind of carries her. Not to say that she's a bad lyricist, but when it comes to her music, I find that her subject matter is kind of derivative. Like 9 times out of 10, when I'm listening to a Nicki Minaj track, all I hear is "I'm a bad bitch, I'm a bad bitch. Look at my thick ass. I mean, pink wig, thick ass, giving whiplash." Like that's all I hear from Nicki Minaj, basically, and I feel like I need to hear more than that. I feel like I need to hear her story more. I've listened to 2 of her albums already, so I kind of have a somewhat of an idea of what her story is, but there needs to be more depth. There needs to be more layers beyond just the Barbie gimmick, and I feel like it's her gimmick that's carrying her forward right now. That's just my personal take on that. And I don't want the Barbs to come at me on Twitter and be like, "You're a hater, whatever." That's just my 2 cents on it. Y'all can debate with me later on that, but that's just the way I feel about the Hiroshiku Barbie girl, if that's what they're calling her these days.